We've got some fresh new young talent doing some things that I know you haven't heard before.
1, 2, 3, listen.
Welcome to Finances, your home for all things financial, investment, money and lifestyle. Hosted and curated by the very talented team of certified financial planners, Burke Financial Partners. This is the Finances Podcast. This is episode number 77. Today's episode, we're joined by Karan Nagrani and Chris Harding from Guide Dogs Victoria. Karan serves as the donor and community engagement assistant, and Chris is the community and corporate fundraising manager. Did I get that right, guys?
Yeah, you did. And
yeah.
I just want to say a big thank you for pronouncing my name right, because most people get it wrong. So thanks for that.
So what do you get, Karen?
I get the worst name, which is Karen, because no one wants to be a Karen these days. But yeah, Karen is great. So thank you.
To be honest, I listened very carefully when Chris introduced you to me as you walked in. And phonetically, it's important to get people's names right. Yeah. I've got plenty wrong. So I'm glad I succeeded with that at least as a good start to the podcast.
I'm not that precious, but just don't call me Karen. That's my only thing is I'm not a Karen. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. It comes with a pretty negative connotation these days, doesn't it?
Put that in the show notes.
Yeah. So again, thanks very much, guys, for coming down. You've travelled down from Kew today to have a chat with us on the Finances Podcast. We were just talking while we're grabbing a coffee about the link between Guide Dogs Victoria and Burke Financial Partners. From memory, and Amy will have to confirm this with me, and we'll add this into the show notes, that it goes back to 2017, 2018, when a client of ours put forward Guide Dogs Victoria as one of the organisations that we make a contribution to through our Future Generation program. So Guide Dogs Victoria, we've been involved with you guys since 2017, 2018. It probably seems like an obvious question, but what do Guide Dogs Victoria do? And we've had a number of podcasts where we've talked with local charities, and sometimes I suppose the charities that are a little less well known have a bit greater issue actually getting some exposure. Guide Dogs Victoria suggests has some pretty good exposure, yet probably has some of its own challenges. So let's start with, who are Guide Dogs Victoria and what do you do?
Yeah. What do you want me to go, Karan?
Yeah, go.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So Guide Dogs Victoria, the leading service for people who are with blind or low vision, working with guide dogs, but we're more than just guide dogs as well. We also these days provide orientation and mobility specialists. We have client services, people working on the NDIS. So yeah, as I said, our main work is with guide dogs. We also do really everything now in the low vision and blindness space to help people live a life without limits.
So when I was Googling Guide Dogs Victoria and getting a little bit of info about yourselves, the association with Guide Dogs Victoria and Guide Dogs Australia and the other state organisations, they're all interrelated, yes?
Yeah, and it's really interesting how it all works. Obviously, Victoria, New South Wales and ACT work really close together. Then you've sort of got Guide Dogs WA, which work with us, but they're also very separate themselves. And there's Guide Dogs SA, Guide Dogs Queensland, and then Guide Dogs Australia, who sort of sits above all of that. So some of the states operate sort of independently to themselves, but we do come together as a collective on certain issues and on certain promotions as well. So,
Karen, how did you go nailing what Guide Dogs Victoria do? Is that pretty close?
I was actually just going to say that's a fantastic corporate explanation, but as a blind person, without making it sound cheesy, if you were to ask me what do guide dogs do, I would say they change lives. And the reason for that is because they literally do change lives. It's a well-known fact amongst, well, not really well known, but not a lot of people know this, but most people will not interact with a blind person in their lifetime. So what I mean by that is you will probably see a blind person, at a train station, at the airport, but in terms of an actual human interaction, most people will not. So when you're blind, to just hear that fact is quite alienating and isolating in a way. And then when you hear what guide dogs do, which is what Chris just said, it's not just guide dogs, it's everything else. It makes you feel less alone, So, and it does change lives, because having a guide dog gives you independence. Having training gives you independence. I remember being in that headspace where I was like, how will I leave the house when I'm completely blind? What will I do? And then you've got people at guide dogs and that'll come to your house and teach you things that you never knew you could do as a blind person. So they do change lives without sounding cheesy.
Yeah. Now, I know that I don't want this podcast, and you probably would agree with this, Karen, you don't want this podcast to be all about you, but the importance here is the fact that you've joined Guide Dogs Victoria as an advocate. Can you tell us a little bit about your background, so your diagnosis and how that led you to the point where you're now advocating for other people with vision loss?
Sure. So I live with a condition called Usher syndrome, which is a combination of blindness and hearing loss. It's degenerative and genetic. So I was diagnosed at the age of 11 and I was born with normal sight, and over the years it started to close in. So if you wanted to experience what I see, what I would recommend doing is covering one eye and using your second hand to make like a little circle. So it's like seeing through a tiny little straw. So to simplify that even more, someone with normal sight, when they look ahead, they see 180 degrees. I see less than 3 degrees. So it's confusing to people because my eyes look normal. And if you didn't see my cane next to me, you probably would not be able to tell that I've got a form of blindness because I'm making eye contact with you right now. But it's quite a rare condition. It affects roughly 1 in 5,000 people across the globe. To put that in perspective, it doesn't sound that rare, but like 1 in 10 people have diabetes. So now if you compare the numbers, 1 in 5,000 is a lot more rare than 1 in 10. So yeah, my background career has been around marketing, communication, graphic design, filmmaking. And I remember when I chose this as a study option, at the back of my mind, I knew that a stage would come where I would not be able to do this.
Do you mind me asking, how old are you now, Karan?
I'm 37.
And so when you...
Sorry, that's where you say you look 21.
I was going to say 18, but Karan, your entry into education, tertiary education or training, at that point, you mentioned that your vision at the moment is around 3% and the vision loss is degenerative. Can you remember where you were at that point?
Absolutely. So back when I was studying, my sight was maybe close to normal. I used to have trouble at night. Funny stories around that, because it's funny because my mum has the same condition. So I sort of knew what was coming, but you still live in denial. You think, it's not going to be the same for you. But I wanted to be a pilot, but that didn't happen luckily. But graphic design, filmmaking, and I'm so glad I picked that, because even though my marketing career had an expiry date, I can now use those skills to raise awareness, because like I said, when people think blindness, they think all black, they think complete darkness, which is not the case. Blindness is a spectrum. There's different shades to blindness. And using my skills now, I can create content that shows people what someone with cataract sees, what someone with macular degeneration sees, what someone with retinitis pigmentosa sees. So that's where I'm at now. And having a job at Guide Dogs is a phenomenal job, because not many people can really say they can put their heart and soul and passion into what they do. Like people do, but like when you're a blind person and you're working for an organization like Guide Dogs, that level of passion is just next level. So I feel really blessed. Like I'm not going to lie, when I had to retire from my marketing career, that was because my sight got so bad that I couldn't use a laptop for graphic design work or filmmaking stuff. So I had to resort to something else. And for about 2 years, I was quite lost. I didn't know what I was going to do for a career or a job. And then Guide Dogs came along. I moved to Melbourne recently, and that's how this has happened. So I really feel like everything happens for a reason.
Did you have a connection with Guide Dogs Victoria specifically? Were they providing support services to you, or?
Yeah, so I don't use a guide dog myself. I'm a cane user, and it comes down to a choice. So a lot of people have asked me, you work for Guide Dogs, but you don't have a guide dog. Short answer is I have 2 really naughty Frenchies in the house, and they will destroy whatever training a guide dog has, and I will get hit by a bus within seconds and die. But secondly, having a guide dog is a commitment. It's a commitment. You've got to make sure you leave the house quite often. You've got to walk the dog. You've got to do all those things, which at the moment I feel like I'm managing okay with my cane. Not to mention it's extremely expensive. Like to raise a guide dog is about $50,000 roughly. So if I feel like I can manage with my cane at the moment, why not let someone else have that guide dog? That's how I think at this stage, yeah.
So when you began, did you begin in the role that you're in now at Guide Dogs Victoria?
Yes, yep. Yes. I've only been here since June, July this year, so quite new.
Yeah. Yeah. And Chris, were you involved with the hiring of Karan, or sorry?
Karan's okay, just no Karan. Yeah.
Second best option. No, I'm actually newer than Karan. I started in September, so when I joined, Karan was already on the team.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's talk a bit about your background, mate. So let's go back to how you found yourself involved with Guide Dogs Victoria. Tell us a bit about where you started.
Yeah, look, well, we'd like to say I think the podcast probably should mostly be about Karan because he's one with a really interesting story and an amazing public speaker. So I love when I get to do things with Karan because I get to hear, his story and things he's been through. But yeah, I guess a little bit about me. Like I've always been involved in the non-for-profit and charity and sports space myself. I'm from regional Victoria and, I just care a lot about people who have been through different things in their life, let's just say, because I've kind of experienced those things and I've seen people in my life experience those things as well. And I think it's led me on to the career that I have now. And I just think the guide dogs, even from the first day I walked through there, I could see how passionate people were and wanting to help other people. And even the fact themselves, I remember on my first day at work at the guide dogs finding out that we're up to 7 staff members now who identify as having low vision or blindness. And I thought that was just incredible that the workplace not only talks the talk, but walks the walk and is trying to provide opportunities for people like that and does give them opportunities. And, we're going through a campus redevelopment at the moment and the whole campus is designed by being interactive and accessible for people with low vision and blindness. And it's going to be absolutely incredible. And you can see every time there's a decision made at the guide dogs, no matter how big or how small, it's always with that in the forefront. How can people with low vision and blindness access our facility the way you or me could without any barriers, without anything stopping them? And I just think that's incredible. So I love coming to work. I literally jump out of bed and I can't wait to see what the next thing is or the next project. And it's only been 8 or 9 weeks since I've been here, but I feel like I've already been here for so long and there's so much more to do as well. So
what drew you to Guide Dogs Victoria specifically? Was there an advertised position? How did it work?
Yeah, so prior to this role, I was really fortunate to work. I actually worked for the Prostate Cancer Foundation Australia and in their space as well, being the community engagement manager there. And I really enjoyed my time there. But at the Guide Dogs, I actually knew Evan, who's the general manager of the Guide Dogs. We tried to work on a project earlier in the year through PCFA and Guide Dogs, and we sort of went down the road a little bit, but didn't quite make it all the way because it wasn't the right timing. Anyway, this role had opened up because my predecessor, who's also worked with Burke and you guys before, was moving on to a different role. And then Evan was in contact with me and wanted to know if I was interested in applying for the position, which I did because I thought a bit of a dream come true to work for the guide dogs. And plus I'm a big animal lover as well. So it always works out. Yeah, so then I ended up going through a process and was lucky enough to get the role and here I am. So
can you tell us a bit specifically about the role that you have? So the fundraising and community engagement. What are you actually doing day to day?
Yeah, so I'm
other than podcast.
Driving along
and
doing a podcast.
Keeping me under control.
Yeah. My role, as I said, community and corporate fundraising manager. So I manage all the aspects of our community and corporate fundraising programs across New South Wales, Victoria and ACT. So that can be right from, a small family barbecue up to a major corporate partner. And there's a really varied role and quite fascinating. A lot of advocacy as well, a lot of working with partnerships at a state level, working with Guide Dogs Australia on national partnerships as well. But I think it's about obviously, getting donations for guide dogs and also working for people and also rewarding people who want to help the guide dogs as well. I think it's important. I think we're an organisation that really gives back, but we don't just, take donations and take money from people. We also really look after the people who want to look after us and building those relationships because they're so important. So I think I play a big role in that too and building those relationships. And it means a lot to me to work with people who are passionate about the things that I'm passionate about. So
yeah, it helps, doesn't it? It helps to share some passion.
Absolutely,
It's hard to create momentum if you don't have some passion behind what you do.
Yeah, and I think the guide dogs do. We create a real community. So, if people do donate to us, we have right down from a $20 donation a month. We have our puppy pals programs. You're involved with what goes on day-to-day life, right up to our corporate partners. We have events for them, yearly, monthly, etc. So it's really awesome to see that we build a community of people who want to help us as well. So it's fantastic.
I might circle back to you now, Karan, from an advocacy point of view. Just going back to your sort of marketing background, that space between then and where you are today, finding yourself at Guide Dogs Victoria. Talk to me about some of those personal experiences that have sort of shaped your advocacy work. So some of the key elements of your life, your journey that have actually informed what you do today to help others in that space.
Sure. I just want to add to what Chris was saying as well, that the level of passion at Guide Dogs, and I'm not just saying this because I work there, I've not seen that level of passion before. I work for not-for-profits like Cancer Council, Alzheimer's, where I know people are supporting a cause, but I've not seen that much love in one organization and dedication, like I've seen at Guide Dogs. And never in my life have I worked for an organization where I have worked with other blind people. In fact, there's a joke at work where I work. I've got a blind person to my left and a blind person to my right, and all three of us have the same condition. And we call that Blind Boulevard, which, is we've got a little sign and everything. So that I just wanted to add to what Chris was saying, because it's so true. As far as my career, do you want to know more about my experience as a blind person doing marketing?
Sure. Yeah,
or what would you like to know?
Let's talk about some of those experiences in the last. So when did you start uni? At 18, 19?
18, yes.
Yeah. You said you're 36
7.
7 now.
Yeah.
So in the space of the last 19 years, what are some of those key moments in your life that have informed how you're operating as an advocate in the low vision space now?
So I'm not going to lie. I lived in denial for a really long time. I just didn't want to accept the fact that I was going blind. Working for organizations doing a job that a blind person wouldn't normally do, like graphic design, filmmaking, that I think other than being creative, it was also like a good cover. Letting people know that, it was more like I was trying to prove a point to myself that I can do what anyone else can do. Having said that, living in denial. When my marketing career ended, I hate using the word ended, but I decided to resign. It was obviously declining. I could see things getting worse. So for example, as a graphic designer, getting the color right is really important. So I would send things to print, and if someone, uses Photoshop that's listening, they'll understand that you've got, I would leave little boxes here and there, and these are things that have gone to print, and print is expensive. You've got thousands of brochures that have been printed and there'll be little errors. And for someone who takes a lot of pride in what they do, that was quite embarrassing for me. And then I decided, that's it, I can't do that. I was quite depressed. I'm not going to lie. For 2 years, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I was living in a town called Albany, which is 4.5 5-hour drive south to Perth. And that's when it struck me that maybe I should just do something where I'm using my skills not professionally, but to benefit others. And I just started like this Instagram account in May, not last year, the year before. And what started off as, a way to make myself feel better turned into this little channel where I'm creating resources that are helping blind people everywhere, hopefully.
This is pretty fly for a blind guy.
Yes.
Yeah. So we may as well give you a shout out now. It's at Karan Nagrani.
Yes.
And little, what do you call it underneath the
handle?
The handle. There
Yep.
you go. The handle. Pretty fly for a blind guy. I like it. I like it.
Thank you. So yeah, this is all new to me. Like people think I've been this advocate for a long time. I'm not. I'd be lying. I used to live in denial. I didn't want to talk about it. I would lie. I didn't tell anyone about my condition. So this is all quite recent. And I'm not going to lie. Once I started talking about it, it was like this big release.
So what was the impetus of that? Like, was starting an Instagram account and sort of vocalizing how you were feeling, was that the point, or did you actually seek some support that actually guided you in that direction, or was it totally self-fulfilling?
It was just a case of I had nothing better to do. I have these skills. I like being cheeky and creative with my content, so I started using comedy as a way to sort of deal with going blind, and that's how it started. Yeah.
So you started the Instagram account, pretty fly for a blind guy. How long ago was that?
I think 1.5 years ago.
So I'm just looking at your link tree on your Instagram, and I can see maybe 20 articles or places that you've promoted and marketed your advocacy work, from ABC News to SBS and a bunch of other places. It's clear to me that your marketing background has held you in particularly good stead in the marketing that you're doing today in your advocacy work.
Yeah, so surprisingly, they came to me. It's not like I went, approaching them saying, can we do this together? And I think it was just a case of one person saw something that I did. Actually, my first ABC article happened before I started my Instagram account. That happened in 2019, I think, or 2020. And that, when I went there for that interview, they were sort of saying to me, you should do this, you should talk about this a bit more. But that was it. And then after that, I just started creating content, and then it just happened. I guess that's the power of social media. It's, the word gets around and people want to know more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what does advocacy look like for you now, outside of doing funny Instagram posts? And I've seen a few of them. Very good. What else does advocacy look like for you at Guide Dogs Victoria?
That's a really good question. I think I would say is to normalize blindness, because blindness is rare. So when someone meets a blind person, they're so scared that whatever they say will offend them, or what they might say is inappropriate. So there's always this sense of awkwardness. And I just want to break that barrier, because we are normal people. We laugh at the same things. In fact, you'll be surprised. Some of the happiest people I know are blind. there's this misconception blind people are sad and depressed all the time. They have no friends. They have no life. Blind people are actually luckier in love. And this is the fact. This is not just something I'm making up. Like, you can Google it. There's actually a stat that says blind people are luckier in love. But that's what I want to do is to normal.
What do you think that is? I know that not being any sort of scientist or having studied vision, the heightened senses, the fact that when people have a sense that it's actually deteriorated, that it elevates some of your other senses, is that possibly a reason why people with low vision excel in other areas of their life or in other areas using their senses?
So that's actually a misconception. It's not necessarily true that if you're losing a sense, your other senses are heightened. So, for example, for me,
ask that question, Karen.
But yeah, I don't know. I think when you're blind, it is what it is. What you see is what you get. There's no facade. There's no putting on. How do I explain it? So, like, for example, when you start dating someone, you're like putting a lot of work into your appearance and you'll make sure your hair is perfect and all of that. Whereas when you're blind, you don't really, obviously you care about grooming and stuff, but it is what it is. There's no facade. There's no put on, I look perfect all the time, So I think maybe that's what it is. I don't know.
Yeah. Chris, I might defer to you here when we're talking about some of the advocacy work that Karen's doing, but also some of the challenges. Talked about some of the challenges that we experience with advocacy and people understanding how people with low vision experience the world. In terms of your role and fundraising and community involvement, what are some of the greatest challenges that you see in the near term for Guide Dogs Victoria to get the support that they actually require?
Yeah, well, I think really something interesting I found out when I started working for the Guide Dogs was that 75% of our funding does come from community and corporate donations. We actually don't get the government funding that a lot of people would assume we would, despite being like a really well-known and big brand and the work we do. So, and with that as well, the challenges of raising a guide dog, it costs $50,000 per guide dog to actually raise, train, and do all the guide dog things you need to do. And it's also quite a lengthy process as well. It can be anywhere probably about 2 years from birth until a guide dog's ready to go to their person. So that's also, there's a time length as well. Plus, probably a good problem to have is that we've more and more careers opening up for our guide dogs now. So then they're not just guide dogs; they're becoming ambassador dogs, therapy dogs. Recently, we had a dog work in a courthouse, which was absolutely amazing. So, like a court dog, so to keep people, calm in that sort of environment. We have dogs working in schools. We have dogs working when I say being part of a family with an autistic child. So the demand is growing for the dogs, which is fantastic. But then also like, well, we need to make sure we have the services to provide the right training for our people, and we're growing. So and those things obviously don't come cheap or for free. So it's about probably educating the public as well that we're not just doing one thing, we're doing lots and lots of different things. Yeah,
I was thinking back to 2018. I think our business's original contribution towards Guide Dogs Victoria funded Ollie B, which was our puppy. And hearing you, so what was the dollar amount that it cost?
$50,000 per guide dog. Yeah.
I think our client contribution to that might have been $10,000, which is a fifth of one dog. Like it's an enormous investment in time and people to actually get a dog up and running and to the point where it actually can support someone. What are some of the other challenges that you see? What if you had kind of a magic wand and you could wave it around and make anything happen in your space of community and fundraising? What would you like to see? And I'll ask the same question of you, Karen. What you'd actually like to see in terms of community involvement, fundraising in your space? So I'll start with you, Chris.
Yeah, well, it's a really good question. I mean, probably first and foremost, like very quickly, I want to say we do have an amazing supporter base, whether it's volunteers or community fundraising or corporate fundraising. So while I'm here, I really should give them a shout out first and foremost, whether it's Burke, Britain or a local puppy raiser in Geelong. We've got amazing supporters all around, not only Victoria, but really the country. So they deserve a massive shout out first and foremost. But I guess some of the challenges going forward, like again, they're always good problems to have because Guide Dogs is growing, but it's all about having a consistent supporter base of people who are coming year after year with donations, and then also them pointing them to the right areas that they want to support the business as well, because it's ever growing. Some people want to get involved, as I said, building facilities on the outside or help with the puppy raising or with, the guide dog breeding and raising and all things like that. So it's probably just about bringing in people who want to help in the right areas to making sure their contributions are feeling valued, because Guide Dogs is growing more and more. And it just about connecting all the right people to the right places. So in terms of magic wand, I think for me, as I said, because I'm still sort of new and learning the space, I think I'm sort of looking at everything. There's no one area in particular, but it's just about probably maintaining the growth of the business and taking people on the journey with us as well. So,
same question to you, Karen. What are the biggest challenges you see You mentioned a couple of them in terms of people's perception of people with low vision or blindness. What are some of the other biggest challenges that you'd like to address or see Guide Dogs Victoria address?
There's a lot of discrimination in the workforce. This is something I've experienced myself. Within the disability space, blind people have a lot of trouble getting work because just based on conversations I've had, a lot of organizations want to hire a person with a disability to meet that tick. Like, you know what, I've hired someone with a disability, I'm Mother Teresa. But when it comes to blind people, there's a lot of fear. They're like, okay, is this person a hazard? What if, they trip and they fall? What if they burn their hand? Am I going to be liable? And that's actually not the case. So I think if I was given a magic wand, I would try and get as much, not experience, but I'd love workplaces to sort of open their eyes a little bit and, be a little bit more open-minded when it comes to hiring blind people, because blindness does not mean you're not intelligent. Blindness does not mean you're not capable. And the adjustments required are slight. They're not major. And there's funding that comes from the government. So if an organization wants to hire a blind person, they don't need to spend any money on equipment or special technology or anything like that. That's all paid for by the NDIS or, not-for-profit organizations. So I would just say to let workplaces know that blind people are really capable, and disability hires does not necessarily just mean wheelchair. Not that I have anything against people in wheelchairs or anything like that, but just give blind people a chance.
Does Guide Dog Victoria have some resources, so for employers particularly, that are looking to get their head around that space? Like, thinking as a small business myself, what kind of resources are available through Guide Dogs Victoria for employers thinking about employing people with low vision or blindness? Did you?
Yeah. So you can always get in contact with our client services team. I think it's a really great question that you're raising, and it's important too, because a lot of time people do want to help, but they don't know the right ways to go. So I think getting in contact with our client services team, we can always call through and look through our website or call our reception. We'll point you to the right people as well. So yeah, we have a whole team working together with businesses and people in the community who want to get into work but then don't know how. So
you mentioned something, Karan, around technology, and obviously tech continues to grow and develop at a rapid rate of knots. I mean, you've experienced from 18 to 37 an extreme change in the world of technology. How is technology supporting people with low vision in the workplace? Are there things that you see today that could be used better? And what are the types of technologies that you see of benefit?
I am one of those people where I'm trying to cling on to whatever little sight I have left. So I'm actually quite reluctant to learn a lot of these new things because maybe a part of me is in denial and I just want to hold on to what I can see. So I've made adjustments on my own. So I've, increased the font size, the contrast, the brightness level. If you look at the mouse on my laptop, it's probably the size of, a 50-cent coin with a circle around it. So I can do things like that. But there's amazing software out there like JAWS or Zoom Text where it reads what you're seeing out to you. My colleagues at work use Zoom and JAWS. I should be learning how to use Zoom Text.
What's JAWS? I don't know.
JAWS is basically... Oh my God, I'm forgetting what it stands for, but it's a software that'll read what you're looking at. It'll just read it out to you. So if you're looking at a Word document or an Excel spreadsheet, it'll sort of tell you file, view, Zoom, all that sort of stuff. And you can tell JAWS to do what you need it to do. It's not as easy as you might think. It is actually quite a complex software to learn. I don't read Braille. A lot of people don't read Braille that are blind. So there is a lot of software out there, but I am clinging on to whatever I can see at this stage. So I use my phone a lot because when you've got a narrow field of sight like I do, a phone is perfect because the screen size is quite small. So even at work, I will use, I'll be sitting with my laptop in front of me, but I'll be responding to emails using my phone. So at work, I'm doing things like sharing my lived experience at events, contacting donors and clients and just talking about my life as a blind person. My work that I do as a speaker that's more personal. That's, I talk about things that are not appropriate for work because I talk about, funny experiences or things that have happened to me. But at work, it's more about... At work, you see the professional Karan. On Instagram, you see the crazy Karan, I guess. Yeah.
In terms of anecdotes, funny anecdotes, maybe have you got any that you maybe share in your presentations that you want to share with us?
Oh God, there's so many. Where do I even begin? So the things that I've done as a blind person, I've sat on someone's lap at the cinema. I have sat on someone's lap on the train. I walked into the wrong toilet. I think the most embarrassing one was I was at Maya and I was a little lost. So I started asking someone for directions only to realize it was a mannequin. So these things happen all the time. I can honestly go on and on. Like, let's not even get into my dating life when I was single. Someone with night blindness going on dates, and I can go on and on and on.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier about the perception, people's perception of people with blindness. What's some advice you could give to someone as they think about, operating and dealing and maybe working with someone that's got low vision or blindness? How should they be thinking? How can you help them reduce any of the barriers or discrimination that you talked about earlier?
Sure. So unfortunately, films and shows have portrayed blind people to be this one way, which is they've got the white cloudy eyes and they can see nothing. Approximately only 10% of blind people see nothing. So when you meet a blind person, don't assume that they see nothing, and also met people and I've told them that I'm blind and they'll talk really slow or they'll talk really loud. And I'm like, I'm blind. I'm not saying, I can't, I have, and I mean this with respect. I don't have an intellectual disability. I just can't see you as well. So I think that would be the main thing, is admit and accept that there is a lot of ignorance out there and it's not your fault. It's because of how blind people are shown. Just be open-minded and maybe listen to the person. Like, just listen to them, learn what they can see and then work around that, because the last thing you want is to be babied or someone to be, because you might try and help, but it could be condescending. So yeah, just listen to them. Ask. We're not as precious as you think we are. Ask away. The questions blind people get asked are ridiculous. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's very important insight into how, I suppose, that sometimes the ingrained discrimination in people that they don't actually know is there, that they don't necessarily perceive themselves, and it might be due to their upbringing. I'm just thinking about the schools, and I'm assuming that you spend a bit of time out in schools sort of educating kids, and you don't. Well, I think that probably, I'm thinking about my kids and the importance of them experiencing, all manner of different people and different disabilities and people with different abilities, be accepting and to not to be foreign to them when they get to the workplace. Yes. And they're 25 years old and they meet someone that's got low vision or blindness for the first time and, awkward or unsure. When the more we can expose people to the fact that we all, regardless of our abilities and our backgrounds, we're all human beings.
I think the worst thing is actually when people think you're faking your blindness. So like I said to you before, my eyes look normal. If you didn't see my cane or the fact that I don't have a guide dog, the assumption is which is fair enough. You would think I'm fully sighted. And then when someone sees you with a cane, they think you're faking it to get benefits from the government, or they think you're faking it for sympathy. So it's not uncommon for blind people to be interrogated in public. You also hear ridiculous things. Like, I remember when I was in Albany, I met this gentleman and he just said something like, my brother's son's friend is blind. He lives in Perth. His name is Greg. Do you know Greg? So these things happen as well. Yeah. Yeah. And I just said, yes, I know Greg, because it's just easier, so. Yeah.
That ignorance, unfortunately, can, and again, sometimes it's, just people being ill-informed or people being uncomfortable and not knowing what to say. I think someone listening to you on this podcast and explaining that and hearing how you feel, I think is going to be a valuable thing for them to hear. Amy would kill me if we didn't talk, little Chris, around the Future Generation Fund and this year's contribution. And you asked me at coffee about how the Future Generation Fund actually works, that Burke Britain are a part of. So I thought I might give you a little bit of an insight into how that works and give a shout out to the Burke Britain clients and the Future Generation Fund and this year's contribution. And you can tell us a little bit about how that contribution is impacting the campus and what you're doing at the campus this year. So the Future Generation Fund is effectively clients that have investments. So they have investments in Future Generation Investment Funds, which is a listed stock on the Australian Stock Exchange. And in lieu of the fund managers charging their 1% management fee, they allow clients to actually direct that amount, 1% of the funds invested, to charities of their choice. So in 2017, we gave our clients the opportunity to decide where they wanted to make the contribution of those funds. And I think the first year was something like $80,000 that was distributed between 4 or 5 charities. As of today, I think I checked the numbers with Amy just recently. Since 2017's $840,000 has been contributed to charities, local charities, state-based charities, all at the direction of the Burke Britain clients through their investments, which has been absolutely sensational. Since 2018, Burke Britain clients and the Future Generation Fund have directed, I checked this morning, $37,000 to Guide Dogs Victoria, including the sponsorship of our guide dog, Ollie B. Yep. And this year, I know that this year's contribution for our clients out there, they'll want to know where it's going and how it's helping. Tell us a little bit about the orchestral garden at Guide Dogs Victoria campus.
Well, first of all, massive shout out to the Burke Britain clients as well. That's absolutely incredible. That's like nearly $1 million in that time to all the different charities is absolutely amazing. So
yeah, it's unreal.
It's absolutely amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. Well, yeah, and with the garden as well that he's just mentioned. So as part of our campus redevelopment, as I mentioned before, that the whole emphasis and idea around it is making it an accessible space for people with low vision and blindness. And part of that too is we're creating this really amazing orchestral garden. Thank you for saying that word. I've been practicing in the car all morning. I
couldn't get Karen's name right.
Got it wrong about 10 times. So thank you. You said it.
Orchestral.
It's going to be absolutely amazing. So there's been a lot of studies and guide dogs looked into themselves and also working with, Vision Australia. Interacting with musical instruments can actually really benefit, particularly like a child's, who has low vision or blindness, and increase sort of their awareness of the world and develop their skills in ways that perhaps they didn't know before. And these instruments are going to be incredible. There's going to be a whole outside area set up where children can go. They can access these instruments. They can use them. They're going to probably do some classes and stuff there. Because I know as part of the campus redevelopment, we're actually going to have the opportunity for people to stay on the campus and, do like camps there and things like that. And the whole camp will be accessible for children and young people as well. So it's going to be incredible. And just all part of that, development of a child's life and getting them to experience things they might not have otherwise been able to. And I know after this podcast is done, when I get back to the office, I'll send through some photos of what some of the instruments are going to be like. And it's just, it's absolutely incredible. And it's going to really contribute to a young person living a positive life. So
it's like a little city. Like I almost feel like Guide Dog should be like a suburb. It's really cool.
It's going to be incredible, the campus. Yeah, you're going to have to invite you guys down to have a look around for sure.
Yeah. When you said campus, it's a decent place.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think most people, they're thinking you guys operate out of an office somewhere in High Street Q.
Yeah, hospital on campus.
Yeah.
No, there's a vet clinic as well now. There's going to be, as I said, a hospital, a cafe, bedrooms. I think up to 10 bedrooms, where people can stay the night. Plus, people are going to be able to do like their guide dog training on campus as well, which is going to be fantastic because quite often, when you're going through the guide dog training, like you have to go out in the street or in public, you're going to be able to come stay at the Guide Dogs campus and get to know your new guide dog and train with them and to go all through the things you need to do to learn how to handle the dog the best you can. So
I suppose it's probably self-evident, but how do some of these initiatives like the orchestral garden, like the vet on campus, how do all of those things make a contribution to sort of delivering on Guide Dogs Victoria's mission? Yeah. Maybe I'll ask you that, Karen. What, in your mind, what do those initiatives actually help achieve for those people that are using the services?
I think for a blind person, like when I'm on campus, I feel normal. I don't feel like I have a disability. I don't feel like I'm a stranger. Whereas I don't feel like I'm an alien because everything is so blind friendly. I'll give you an example. So everyone at work, when you meet them, they will say, "Hi, Karen, I'm John. Hi, Karen, I'm Matt." And the reason they do that is when you're blind, it takes you may or may not recognize the face. So just little things like that when you show up on campus. So you're looking around and you're seeing all these things that are blind friendly. What it shows a blind person. Like if I saw that as a kid, I would feel hopeful. I would feel like, the future is bright, which I didn't feel like when I was a kid because I didn't see that. So I think that's the main thing, other than the practical side of things, what it can do to a young person emotionally or mentally. It makes you feel like, you can lead a normal life with minor adjustments.
There's going to be a few people out there listening to this podcast, Karen, and you mentioned some of the personal challenges as your vision deteriorated. What is some of the advice that you might give to someone out there, a child, a teenager, a young adult that is suffering from low vision or blindness? What sort of encouragement would you give them? Where would you suggest that they go for support?
I would suggest if you're blind or if you're going blind to talk about your problems, but my suggestion would be, and I highly recommend this, is to only talk to someone who's blind, not to someone who's fully sighted, because they will never completely get what you're trying to say. So, and that's when you start to feel alone, because when you're confiding in a person that's fully sighted and you're saying, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that, the immediate response is to say something to make you feel better, which is actually not helpful all the time. Whereas if you talk to a blind person, they'll be like, yeah, it's shit. It's awful. And sometimes you just want to hear that from someone else. And I was telling Chris about this in the car. So my sight has deteriorated recently. And when that happens, because it falls and it stagnates and it falls and it stagnates, you sort of mourn. It's like a death because you're losing something and you're not going to get it back. And I was actually quite upset. And I was talking to Erin, who has the same condition as I do, but she's now almost completely blind. And she said to me, when you lose sight from, say, 80% to 70%, it's obviously hard. But when you lose from 3% to 2.8%, that's much harder. So little things like this. Now, a fully sighted person would not be able to tell you that. And Erin is the only person who made me feel better when I was struggling with this recent loss of sight. So as much as fully sighted people want to help, they mean well, but they'll never really understand as much as they want to. So I would say reach out online, try and, even if you don't want to meet someone face to face, that's the power of social media. You can just talk to someone online and you'll feel less alone.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And yeah, I think we're all probably guilty of trying to give advice to people outside of our wheelhouse. It's like people getting, with so many examples of people trying to give advice in something that they really have no experience or understanding of.
I think it's good to know they mean well, but then at the end of the day, sometimes you want to hear what you want to hear and you're not going to get that from a fully sighted person.
Yeah, very good point. Very good point. Now, I'm mindful of the fact that we've been going for nearly an hour. Would you believe that?
Wow.
Now, I want to talk about calls to action. So encouraging donations, volunteering, community involvement, advocacy work. How can listeners support the work of Guide Dogs Victoria? Over to you, Chris. Tell us how can we get involved?
Cool. Well, first of all, I reckon give Karan a follow on Instagram. Would probably be a good start. I also follow Guide Dogs as well because we're always I reckon we post every day, giving people updates around all the things we do all around, not only Victoria, New South Wales, but Australia as well. Yeah, the donation, as I said, you can donate online or over the phone. Sorry, I just had a bit of a blank out there.
That's okay. It's all good.
What was the question? Sorry.
How can we get involved? Donations, volunteering, community involvement, advocacy. Cool. Where do you go?
Cool. Yeah. So, and speaking of volunteering, actually, we're always on the lookout for more puppy raisers. We can never have too many puppy raisers. So you can always get involved in that, looking for people to raise our guide dogs before they go back out into the world and become an actual guide dog. As I said, donations as well. Really exciting time at the moment with guide dogs with the new campus redevelopment and all the services that we're growing. The donations are going to an amazing place. You can get involved there. Our gifts and wills are really massive as well. People love giving a gift in their will. And when you do that, you become part of our gifts and wills program. So there's yearly, I think there's monthly and yearly events on for people who leave gifts in their wills, and you become part of that community, which is fantastic. We always love a corporate partnership or corporate sponsorship. You can do pat and chats. You can come to our campus if you like and pat a few of our dogs in for a donation, which is always a really good deal. Yeah, there's lots and lots of ways to get involved. I'll leave my phone number and email in the show notes and you can get in contact with me. I'm always open for a chat in any way because we welcome all the support, no matter how big or small. You might think, my contribution isn't doing anything, whether it's, we get people who give us $5 in the mail and it means everything to us, and we give them a thank you and say, thank you for doing that, right up to people who donate thousands to us who are so generous. So it all counts.
Karen, you want to add anything to that in terms of support and getting involved with Guide Dogs Victoria?
Absolutely. I second everything Chris said, but support doesn't need to be serious. You can have a lot of fun with it. You can have events, you can have little theme parties, you can sell merchandise, you can join us. So it's not a serious thing. You can have a lot of fun with it and make a difference. So get onto our website, have a look at our social media to see what you can do, because we do a lot of fun stuff as well. We're going to be at a few festivals next year. You can come to our stalls and buy merch as well. Yeah, there's a lot you can do. And it's not all serious. It's a lot of fun as well.
Well, guys, I will definitely link to all of the website. Karen, your Instagram and Linktree, and Chris, your LinkedIn and the donation portal on the Guide Dogs Victoria website. It's been a pleasure having both of you on today. I know it's been a long time in the making from 2017-18 to today. It's been insightful. Karan, it's been really good to get inside your head
Likewise.
And have a listen to what you've got to say and the advice that you can provide to other people out there with blindness and low vision, but also people in the community who might be looking to employ people with low vision and blindness and just getting involved. So, as you said, Karan, it can be done with humour too. I think that's probably one of the most important things in life is that we do need to laugh. We need to have some fun and we need to get involved. So, again, thanks for taking the trip down the Geelong Road. If
Thanks for having us.
Geelong Road. Enjoy the trip back on the Melbourne Road, and I look forward to coming and visiting the campus in the near future and checking out the orchestral garden. I got that right.
Yep.
And I look forward to maybe doing a round 2 and a round 3 on the podcast with the two of you in the near future. We can dive a little bit deeper into some of the key elements of Guide Dogs Victoria. So again, thank you very much, gentlemen, for the time and the conversation. I've really appreciated it.
Thanks for having
Thank you.
us.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you're keen to understand more about how financial advice could benefit you, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Burke Britain FP, or Google Burke Britain Financial Partners. Check out our client reviews, testimonials, and make a time to meet one of our certified financial planners by clicking Book Now on our website. Thanks for listening.
Any information contained in this podcast is of a general nature only. No account was taken as to the objectives, financial situation, or needs of any particular person. Therefore, before making any decision, listeners should consider the appropriateness of any information with regard to their particular objective, financial situation, needs, and seek independent advice from a licensed professional specific to their circumstances.
All right, hit it.
That translates to don't be a moron and act on what some random person says on a podcast. Take personal responsibility, do your homework, ask questions, and speak to an actual human that knows what they're talking about before you do anything. PP Financial Solutions Proprietary Limited, trading as Burke Britain Financial Partners, are authorised representatives of AMP Financial Planning Limited, AFS, licence number 232706.